On any given day, one of every 3 people using public transportation in this country is riding the New York City subway. There's a world down there, a dingy, dimly lighted world to which the bright world outside gives little notice. Here is Andrea Naverson's story about an artist who found rewards in getting under the city's skin.
It's a trip that nearly 4 million people take every day. But for Bruce Davidson, it isn't just a journey, say, from Brooklyn to the Bronx. For a year, he rode the cars with his camera, making pictures of life and in the process learning something about his own. He became, in effect, artist in residence on the New York subway.
Everything in the subway is in a state of flux. It's moving constantly. The trains are, the people are, even when the trains are stopped and stalled, people are moving. They're moving within themselves. I wanted to freeze the moment, to hold the moment, to trap the moment, and to see in depth and detail.
You made crop marks. These you saw it was 2026. That's 3.5 by 24.25.
Davidson's subway photographs have been gathered in an exhibition at the International Center of Photography in New York and in a forthcoming book. Although he's best known for his black and white photographs, these photographs are in rich, vibrant color that you wouldn't expect to find beneath the ground.
When I began to photograph in the subway, I began photographing in black and white, because the subway is, to most people, black and white. It's life and death. But as I photographed, I began to see colors in the subway, the color of graffiti, the color of a wall, the color of a face. And these colors became characters. They began to say something about the person and the place. I think that it's important for a photographer in this day and age to become involved, to get closer. Robert Capa, who was a famous war photographer in the Second World War, said that if you're not getting good photographs, it's because you're not close enough emotionally to your subject. Otherwise, you're a paparazzi. Otherwise, you're an alien thing dropping down on people.
I'm trying to do a book on the subway in color, and I'm just photographing people, as I find them on the subway. You mind?
What?
Do you mind if I take a picture of you on the subway?
Yeah, I don't worry.
But usually, Davidson was able to cut through the defensiveness and hostility he found on the subway. He drew in his subjects by showing them his work, so they became not victims, but participants in his project.
Most people were very open. I carried a small portfolio with me, a small wedding album of a selection of photographs that I'd made in the subway, and I showed people what I was doing, what was I about, and they trusted me somehow, and they saw that I was trying not only to make their photograph, but to try to communicate something that's very important to communicate today, that the subway is made up of individuals, millions of individuals that ride it every day, and each is different than everyone else. The subway isn't just only a big bad place, a black hole in the city cosmos.
Thanks a lot. Okay.
Watch your step, getting off, please. Watch your step. Please watch your step. Let him off, please.
One Sunday morning, I was on a train on my way to the Bronx Zoo. I thought there might be families coming to the zoo. But I think I was a little lost. I wasn't sure where I was, and I saw these two Bible ladies. The sun was just coming through the window and glowing on their dark faces. And I asked them if I could photograph them with their Bibles. And they said yes. And one of them turned to me and said, "Why aren't you in church?" I said, "Because I am in church. The whole subway system is a church for me. And I go every Sunday." They sort of laughed and they said, "Where are you headed?" And I said, "To the Bronx Zoo." She said, "Well, whatever church you're going to is not helping you because this is not the train to the Bronx Zoo." Sometimes my photographs were really out the window. Although there was a person sitting in front, the background became their true subject. The true subject sometimes wasn't even the person that I photographed, but something about them that made me think about vulnerability, sensuality, death, birth.
Vulnerability was something Davidson often felt as he rode the subway through the night, through neighborhoods he'd never known. To overcome his fear not only of physical danger but of emotional rejection, he took the offensive, imagining himself as a hunter instead of the hunted. Then one day he dropped his guard and was mugged.
I was very vulnerable. I took a chance on that. And my wife told me that the reason I was mugged was that she felt that I had finished the project and I didn't feel that I'd paid my dues. And I was letting myself really open for it. And I finally got hit.
He lost a $1,000 camera and, like countless victims of subway crime, some of his dignity. But Davidson got back on the subway and rode it to the end of the line, to the completion of the project. He had focused his lens on the dirt, the crime, and the indignity, and had found something of beauty.
It's a humiliating experience to ride a New York subway. In spite of all that, it's the most incredible place that I've ever been. I would rather photograph in Grand Central Station than in the Grand Canyon. I mean, that's my choice. To make something as beautiful out of the New York subway system as I could make out of the Grand Canyon, that's a real challenge. And to find its humanity when it's inhuman, that's a challenge. I didn't see the subway system until I started working in it. Until I finished it, I didn't know what I had.
The camera is a substitute for memory, and places likely and unlikely are profusely recorded.
Okay, that's fine.
In among the idle snappers, of course, there are the pictorial historians. This man, immortalizing Aberdeen, Scotland, is perhaps the most famous of these in the last half-century.
Yeah, that's very good. Now I want to take some other fish.
A photographer should be ready all the time.
38 pounds. 30. You've been down here before. 38. Did you miss me?
I don't look for the unexpected, but I like to chat with people. And somebody objected. I never forced anybody. I never stole a picture. I never sneaked a picture. I try to convince people, and usually it helps.
Alfred Eisenstaedt, longtime star of Life magazine, is not famous for clever lighting or fashionably furry focus. He's simply the man who always turned up at the right time and place. On November 30th, 1936, one of his pictures appeared on the cover of Life, the first of more than 90 such occasions. No other photographer has come close.
I think I have no trademark as far as I know, and I've never looked at other photographers. I didn't imitate.
In 1927, Eisenstaedt sold his first picture, Autumn the Shadows Grow Longer, to a Berlin newspaper. And in a wink of a shutter, an unhappy button salesman became a happy and successful picture taker.
I'm a self-made man. When I started photography in the late 20s, nobody could help me because nobody was there to tell me anything. I had to try everything myself.
Eisenstaedt, now 85, was one of the first 4 photographers hired by Life. In subsequent years, to a repeated cry of, "Let Eisy do it," he produced views of the roller coaster of America between wars. Stars climbing the slippery slopes of Hollywood.
One of our prominent picture editors of Life magazine said, "I'm going to send you to Hollywood to photograph all these movie queens and things." And he was smoking a cigarette like this. And after 5 minutes said, "Don't be in awe of them, of these movie queens. You are a king in your profession." And I have never forgotten that, not that I feel like a king, but not to be in awe of anybody.
He froze for a moment, the movers and shakers of the world. From the chill realities of the draft board goodbyes, great men, and great moments. Eisenstaedt snapped the intimacies of history. I do believe you said that when General Tojo wouldn't look at anybody, you simply barked out his name and he looked at you.
No, when Tojo was led from Sugamo prison after his indictment, he walked with about 20 other war criminals, generals and admirals, from the prison van to his indictment. And everybody was going like this. And just when he was near me, I called, Tojo, look at me. He looked like this, and this was one picture, took one picture.
So that's the catching of attention.
Yes.
And on the other hand, with Mr. Hemingway, you had to do endless arguments.
Very many. He was my most difficult subject.
Caught writers from Thomas Mann in evening dress to George Bernard Shaw in a rare moment of rest. He was difficult.
It was difficult to get an appointment, but somebody said, look, he is a vegetarian. I thought, my goodness, bananas are very hard to get, and I sent him a bunch of bananas, a portfolio of my pictures, and 2 days later I got an invitation to come to him and photograph him.
Truman Capote was skating one way, while in the world of fashion, a St. Moritz waiter skated the other.
I have to express myself in pictures. I would have liked to paint, but I can't paint. I have to paint with my camera. I need some pigeons.
You want me to get more food?
Give me the fruitcake. Here, I know where to put it. I crumble it in 3 different crumbles. Give me some more. They have to be more fast. And nothing has really changed in my perception of pictures, and is almost the same as in the past. I'm interested in beauty, in art, in new seeings, and so on.
Where are you going?
I do not plan to retire. Okay, you hold me now tight.
Yeah,
You have to pull, you have to pull, because I have to bend over.
All right, yeah.
Clear of the rally?
No, wait. Pull a little tighter, because I want to bend much more over. I have to bend over, nothing. You hold me?
Yeah.
Pull a little more, because I want to bend over more.
You want me over even more?
Yeah, that's all right, that's all right. Okay, I have it.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Come down slowly.
That's all right. You don't have to hold me now.
You won't be able to place the faces in these pictures. They are people from a world most of us have never seen, but they're our neighbors on this planet, who belong to a world of work that is vanishing.
How's it look?
Yeah,
How's it look with you?
I believe it's working quite well. No?
Yes.
So it's our good fortune that they have a biographer of sorts, the Brazilian photographer Sebastião Salgado. An exhibit of his photographs is on display here at the International Center of Photography in Midtown Manhattan through late May. It's called simply Workers.
I spent about 6 years around the world trying to make a portrait of this working class that is disappearing.
For most of history, the world's work has been done by hand. But now, in a time when machines are making human beings more and more expendable, Salgado figured he'd better get his pictures while the getting's good.
This one and that one work beautifully together. That portrait.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because this scale is a human scale. That's
Yeah.
perfect to big too, but it's perfect.
yeah.
I believe that's okay. I believe that the story of humanity, the way that we work, that we produce from the beginning until now,
And the story of how desperately hard the work is. Cane cutters in Cuba, gold miners in Brazil, and the terrible places where the work must be done. The purgatory of a sulfur mine in Indonesia. Oil workers trying to put out the scores of oil well fires in Kuwait. For slaughterhouse workers in South Dakota. Some of it pays very well indeed, but workers who cut their way under the channel to connect England and France will tell you they earned it. But most of the world's work pays barely enough to live on, and work is when and where you can find it. In the coal mines of India, finding fish in the shoals of the Mediterranean. Salgado's genius is that he can focus on the real people in this tapestry of toil, strong, dignified people.
This is an exhibition of pictures of proud people.
proud people, people that has conscience that they are producing the base of the life of the other humans.
People who know who they are and what they can do. No-nonsense people.
And beside the hard work, there is the life, there is the discussion, there is the smiles, there is the sufferings, there is so many things that goes on. There is the time that we don't work, there is the life that goes on.
It's all there in pictures. Work and play. Love and laughter. Hate and anger, too. And as you've seen by now, the world's work is certainly not just man's work. It was these women that dug the Rajasthan Canal in India, a shovelful at a time, with their babies on their backs. The Bible says God created the world in 6 days. The women did God one better.
So they work 7 days. When women finish the work, they go back home and they continue to work because they must prepare for the family, they must prepare food for the kids. When men finish to work, he really finished to work.
It's obvious that God was a man.
Absolutely, God was a man.
What strikes you in these pictures is how much of the work now is in the service of machines. In Bangladesh, they cut old ships apart to make a plow or a butter knife, or a fender for a new car. Machines are quickly making much of the work and the workers you see in these pictures obsolete, which is why Sebastião Salgado captured it all in black and white for the record.
I believe that all humanity must know about, because if we want to build something for the future, we must know the past and we must know what's happened in the present moment.
So take a last good look at Salgado's pictures. Soon enough, they'll be history.
I was told that you could make me look exactly like Julia Roberts, and that's why.
There are few public figures who would turn down being photographed by Harry Benson.
That's nice.
Charles Grodin is no exception.
So what's your big story this week?
After all, Benson's lens has a habit of catching history
That's nice.
and sometimes making it. His camera was with the Beatles when they first came to America.
I am the king of the world!
He was with Muhammad Ali in victory.
There's the president waving goodbye.
He was with President Nixon in defeat. And he was with death. Sometimes of those we knew, and sometimes those we didn't.
This is nice where he's smiling.
With his wife Gigi at his side, Benson has made a life in pictures. But ask him about his art, and he makes it sound like we could all be great photographers. If only.
You know what photography is? That's a good picture. That's a bad picture. I like it. I don't like it. Now, photography is simple. Basically, you try to put your camera in an interesting position.
And for 5 decades, he's been in nothing but interesting positions with interesting people. And we have gotten to see what he sees. This month alone, his work is featured in nearly a dozen magazines. And a New York art gallery recently displayed many of the photos he's cataloged in a new book, Harry Benson, 50 Years in Pictures.
Photography was the road out for me. That was the only thing I could do. In fact, it was the only thing that interests me. It was the romance of history.
And being there to capture it.
Yes.
It started with a simple picture he took when he was just 16 years old. A deer in a zoo in Glasgow, Scotland. It was his first published work.
So I'm in a train going home from Glasgow one day, and the man next to me is turning his paper, and he turns this page, and there's this picture, quite large. It was just a wonderful feeling.
He then came here, to London, where he tried getting a job at one of the legendary newspapers on Fleet Street. He finally got one. His first assignment, to cover a 4-person band whose song about holding hands just topped the charts in the U.S.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something.
That night, we're sitting around there, and they're all drinking. And I suggested a pillow fight, and Lennon said, oh, that's childish, it's stupid. And McCartney agreed, and they all agree. Anyway, John slips away, and McCartney's drinking brandy or something. And Lennon comes up and bangs him in the back of the head. And that's it, you know?
That's how it started.
That's how it started. It's my favorite picture, Lee, because it meant I was coming to America with them. I never went back, you know. I always wanted to come to America.
He followed the Beatles everywhere, while they worked and while they played, even teaming them up with Muhammad Ali. But the lighthearted nature of the 60s was soon overtaken by the decade's darker side.
Little did he know that something awful was waiting for him.
Bobby Kennedy was one of his most memorable subjects.
It's sad about the picture because he had, you know, he's got a jaunt in his step and, you know, walking into death, basically.
Less than 3 months later, Sirhan Sirhan shot and killed Bobby Kennedy in Los Angeles. Harry Benson was there.
I never heard any shots. All I heard was the screaming, and the screaming was I still remember it to this day. I still wake up at night. I mean, a man was murdered in front of me.
Benson never lost his love of covering news, but he soon developed a taste for the lives of people in the news and catching them when just for a moment they forget they're in his sights.
See, what I'm looking for, Lee, is information and photographs. And a picture, unless it's got information, certainly my kind.
And the ones you like the best say a lot.
Yes. What makes the picture to me is, in all pictures, is movement. It catches your eye. I think in everything I've done, I think there's a moment where it softens and you've got a chance to get it. And it's all there.
He found that moment while photographing the Clintons in an Arkansas hammock before the '92 campaign.
It's very sensual, and they're not quite touching. I think it makes it more sensual.
He found that moment with the Reagans, too.
That was him at his best, the best time of his life. I think it's important to get people at the best time of their life.
Gee, what a thrill each time I kiss her.
He certainly got them at their best here.
Believe me,
I had a record of Frank Sinatra singing Nancy with a laughing face, you know. And Reagan kept looking at his watch. He said, well, I have to be going now because the president of Chile was waiting. It was a state dinner. And Nancy said, oh, let him wait, you know.
And then there are the moments never meant for a camera, but speak to it in a way no posed photo ever could. George Burns, visiting his late wife, Gracie Allen.
After about 5 minutes, he went up, kissed his hand and touched it and said, I'll be seeing you soon, old girl, you know. It really quite breaks your heart. He just sort of shuffled off, you know.
In the end, he says, great photographers are like animals stalking their prey, whether they're invited or not. Greta Garbo only found out after her vacation that Benson had been there too.
Do you think of yourself, though, that way as a predator?
Oh, that is predatory. No question about it, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go around and kid myself on it was anything else.
Because she didn't really know you were there,
no,
right?
You cannot ignore someone like Garbo.
But all the instinct in the world means little if it's not blended with preparation and patience. This was the last picture he took of artist Andrew Wyeth at his home in Maine that day. It's one of Benson's favorites.
I like the color, it's nice green, I like the building, and even without knowing who he is, I think it's a picture that you look at, a picture I look at, and that's all I care about. If I can look at it, I don't really, you know, that's fine, because a lot of pictures after I do, I can't look at.
From a frail-looking deer to kings of pop to queens of fashion. Quite a roadmap, made up of moments, one frame at a time.
My pictures, I can trace my whole life. The pictures will always be there, you know, and it'd be good for my kids to see. The father wasn't such a loser after all, you know.
Where does a photographer of the great outdoors point her camera when the coronavirus keeps her at home? Well, says our Connor Knighton, what about the great indoors?
Okay, so I have no idea what this is gonna look like.
For Erin Sullivan, making the bed has recently taken on a whole new meaning.
I think this one's gonna be a little messy.
With just a few mounds of sweetener, a little trial and error, and some creative camera positioning,
I think I got it.
Sullivan made her bed into the setting for the Sugar Sand Dunes. It's a scene reminiscent of New Mexico's White Sands, a place she photographed in person last spring.
I love travel and I love the outdoors. With my whole soul, it is what I chose as a career for a reason. I love this world.
Known online as Erin Outdoors, Sullivan makes her living as a travel photographer. But when COVID-19 hit, all of her far-flung gigs dried up.
So you're a travel photographer who can't travel. How did you adapt?
I started thinking about how I could stay creative, and I decided to challenge myself to create tiny adventure scenes out of household objects.
Here's a scene right now where an adventure is happening.
Soon, mushroom groves, spaghetti swamps, and broccoli forests were sprouting up around her Los Angeles apartment.
Shooting on my bed because it gets the best light.
Some scenes, like Tinfoil Lake, look as if they could be actual locations.
I got the tiniest hikers.
Others, like Great Pancake Canyon, are more obviously fanciful. Although, boy do I wish a place like that were real.
I'm really trying to communicate a feeling more than a literal place, a feeling of wonder or awe or adventure or calm.
As an outdoor photographer, you're often at the mercy of nature. You're waiting for the perfect lighting, you're waiting for that wildlife to walk into frame. What's that change been like, where you are now the architect of this natural world?
I try to sit and really brainstorm what I'm going for and get clear on that, sketch it out, and then set things up so that I don't get overwhelmed with the possibilities, because there are infinite possibilities with this project.
For proof of those possibilities, just search for the hashtag #OurGreatIndoors on Instagram. Sullivan encouraged her followers to upload their own attempts. A chocolate bar canyon from Ecuador, a hot orange balloon from Italy, a beach scene created behind a baby gate by Indianapolis photographer Michael Durr. Someday soon, Sullivan will be back in nature again. Until then, this bout of quarantine-inspired creativity has helped her stay connected to what matters most in photography. The best images of the outdoors, real or simulated, are meant to make you feel something inside.
Giving people that moment of feeling transported, or maybe feeling hopeful, or maybe being reminded of the beauty in the world, that gives me a lot.